The transport ship landed on the training planet with a deep rumble that shook the metal floor. Marcus Cole stood near the back of the cargo bay, watching the other recruits prepare themselves. They were all aliens, big ones, dangerous ones, and every single one of them looked at Marcus like he was a mistake. He was the only human. The doors opened and bright orange sunlight flooded into the ship. Marcus picked up his bag and walked down the ramp with the others. The air outside was thick and hot, and it smelled like sulfur and something else he could not name. The training facility stood before them, a massive structure of black metal and glass that stretched toward the sky. This was the Galactic Hunter Corps Academy, the most famous hunting school in the known universe. Only the best warriors from every species were allowed to train here. Marcus had worked for 7 years just to get an invitation. A tall figure waited for them at the base of the ramp. She was Keith Ronnie, one of the most feared predator species in the galaxy. She stood over 7 feet tall, with scales that shimmered between blue and green in the sunlight. She had 4 eyes, 2 large ones in the front and 2 smaller ones on the sides of her head. Her hands ended in curved claws that looked sharp enough to cut through steel. Her name was Commander Vitha Scaling, and she had been training elite hunters for more than 200 years. The recruits formed a line in front of her. Marcus took his place at the end, between a massive Vorthak warrior and a slim Silene tracker with glowing fur. The Vorthak was nearly 8 feet tall with muscles like stone. The Silene was covered in soft fur that pulsed with bioluminescent light. Commander Vitha walked slowly down the line. She stopped in front of each recruit and studied them with her 4 cold eyes. She nodded at some. She asked questions of others. When she reached the Vorthak warrior, she placed her clawed hand on his chest and smiled. "Strong," she said. "Your people have produced many great hunters. I expect much from you." Her 4 eyes blinked one after another like a wave of confusion crossing her face. For a long moment she simply stared at him. Then she leaned closer, her nostrils flaring as she smelled him. "What is this?" she asked. Her voice was sharp and cold. "Marcus Cole, Commander," he said. "Terran Confederation, I am honored to train under." She turned to her lieutenant, a younger Keith Ronnie who stood nearby with a data pad. "Explain this. Why is there a human in my training group?" Marcus kept his face still. He had expected this. Humans were new to the galactic community. They had only made first contact 30 years ago. Most alien species still did not know much about them, and what they did know was not impressive. Vitha began to circle Marcus slowly. Her claws clicked against the metal ground with each step. The sound reminded Marcus of a clock counting down. "Let me see," she said, her voice dripping with false curiosity. "Soft skin that tears at the lightest touch, blunt teeth that cannot pierce meat, no claws, no venom, no natural armor." She leaned close to his face, so close that he could feel the heat of her breath. "You cannot see in the dark, you cannot smell blood from a distance. You cannot hear the heartbeat of your prey. On your world, are you predator or prey? Because from where I stand, you look like food." "He says he is adaptable." She shook her head and walked away from him. "I have heard this word many times from weak species. It is what prey says when it has nothing else to offer. I know what makes a predator, and I know what makes prey." She pointed directly at Marcus. "That human will wash out before the first lunar cycle ends. I promise you this." He could hear them talking about him in low voices. Some of them were placing bets on how long he would last. The Vorthak warrior gave him 3 days. The Silene tracker was more generous and gave him a week. As Marcus walked, he thought about his grandfather. The old man had been a soldier on Earth, back when humans still fought wars against each other. He used to tell Marcus stories about survival, about endurance, about the one thing that humans had that no other species seemed to understand. "We are not the fastest," his grandfather used to say. "We are not the strongest. We cannot fly or breathe underwater or see in the dark, but we have something better. We have the will to keep going when everything tells us to stop." She thought he was prey because his skin was soft and his teeth were blunt. She did not understand. Humans were not dangerous because of their bodies. Humans were dangerous because of their minds, because of their will. Because when the universe knocked them down, they got back up. Again and again and again until the universe itself got tired. Vitha had trained hunters for 200 years. She had seen every kind of predator the galaxy had to offer, but she had never seen a human refuse to break. Marcus followed the other recruits into the facility. The doors closed behind him with a heavy sound. Somewhere ahead, Commander Vitha was already planning the trials that would drive him out. She was going to learn something new about the universe. And she was not going to like it. The first week was designed to break the weak ones. Commander Vitha called it the separation phase. She said it separated true hunters from those who only dreamed of being hunters. For Marcus Cole, it was worse than anything he had imagined. Every day began before sunrise. The recruits were woken by a loud alarm that hurt their ears. They had 5 minutes to dress and report to the training yard. Those who were late had to carry heavy stones on their backs for the entire day. Marcus was never late, but Vitha made him carry stones anyway. She said it was to build his strength since humans were so pathetically weak. The other recruits laughed. Marcus carried the stones and said nothing. The training itself was brutal. In the morning, they ran through obstacle courses filled with fire pits, poison fog, and mechanical creatures that attacked without warning. In the afternoon, they practiced combat against training drones that hit back with real force. In the evening, they studied tracking techniques, survival skills, and the biology of dangerous prey animals. Marcus struggled with all of it. He was slower than the Vorthak warriors. His senses were weaker than the Sileni trackers. His body took damage that the other species could simply ignore. But he never stopped. This confused Commander Vitha. She watched him from her observation tower every day, her 4 eyes following his small figure as he moved through the training grounds. She saw him fall during the obstacle course and expected him to stay down. He got up. She saw him take hits from the combat drones that would have broken the bones of most species. He kept fighting. She saw him fail a tracking exercise and expected him to give up. He went back and tried again. "Why does he not break?" she asked her lieutenant on the 7th day. The lieutenant had no answer. Vitha decided to push harder. She assigned Marcus to the night watch every single night. While other recruits slept for 8 hours, Marcus slept for 3. She gave him the heaviest equipment during field exercises. She made him carry supplies for the entire group during long marches. The other recruits began to notice something strange. During the endurance trial on the 9th day, the recruits were told to run until they could not run anymore. The Vorthak warriors were built for power, not endurance. They lasted 4 hours before their massive muscles failed them. The Sileni trackers, light and quick, lasted 6 hours before their small hearts gave out. Even the Morthian scouts, known for their stamina, collapsed after 8 hours. Marcus Cole kept running. Kethros, the Sileni tracker with the glowing fur, watched from the recovery area where she lay on the ground trying to catch her breath. 9 hours had passed, then 10, then 11. "Impossible," she whispered. "His body is breaking, I can see it. His muscles are tearing. His joints are swelling. Why does he not stop? He knows his body is failing. He is continuing anyway. His brain is releasing massive amounts of stress hormones. By all medical standards, Commander, he should have collapsed 2 hours ago." She had trained warriors from 50 different species. She had seen strength. She had seen speed. She had seen natural killing power that could destroy ships. She had never seen anything like this. "What are you?" she whispered, watching the small human figure continue to run in the orange light of the setting sun. Marcus finally stopped after 14 hours. He did not collapse. He simply walked to the edge of the track, sat down carefully, and began stretching his legs. His face was pale and covered in sweat. His hands were shaking, but his eyes were clear and calm. Kethros approached him slowly, as if she were approaching a dangerous animal. "How?" she asked. "How did you do that?" "On Earth, our ancestors used to hunt by running. They would chase an animal for hours, sometimes days, until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. Most predators are built for short bursts of speed. We are built to never stop." This human had neither by her standards, but he had something else, something her people did not have a word for. She sat down next to him, not as a friend, not yet, but no longer as an enemy. "You are strange, Marcus Cole," she said. "I know," he replied. In the observation tower, Commander Vitha watched this exchange. She saw Kethros sit beside the human. She saw the way the Sileni tracker looked at him, with confusion mixed with something that might become respect. Vitha did not like it. She turned away from the window and walked to her private quarters. Her wound from an old hunt ached, as it always did when she was troubled. She sat in the darkness and thought about what she had seen. The human was weak. That was a fact. She could kill him with one swipe of her claws. Any predator in the galaxy could kill him without effort. But something about him was wrong. Something about the way he moved, the way he thought, the way he refused to obey the limits of his own body. For the first time in many decades, Vitha felt something she did not recognize at first. It had been so long since she experienced it. It was unease. She pushed the feeling away. The human was just stubborn, she told herself. Stubbornness was not the same as strength. The real tests were coming, the wilderness hunts, the live prey, the death world exercise. Those tests did not care about willpower. Those tests killed the weak. The human would fail, he had to fail. The universe did not make sense otherwise. Vitha went asleep, but her dreams were troubled. In them she saw a small figure running through darkness, never stopping, never slowing, while everything around it fell and died. She woke up before dawn, her scales cold with sweat. Something was coming. She could feel it in her bones, the same instinct that had kept her alive for 2 centuries of hunting the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. Something was coming, and she did not know if she was ready for it. The final test was on Kyrath 7, a world that had earned the name Death Planet many times over. Everything on Kyrath 7 was designed to kill. The plants were poisonous. The water was acidic. The animals were monsters that had evolved over millions of years to become perfect killing machines. Commander Vitha gathered the remaining 12 trainees in the shuttle bay. Many had already failed and been sent home. Those who remained were the strongest, the fastest, the most dangerous. And Marcus Cole, who was none of those things. "Listen carefully," Vitha said, her 4 eyes scanning the group. "Your target is a thornback matriarch. She is moving toward her spawning ground on the eastern continent. If she reaches it, she will produce hundreds of offspring. Your mission is to track her and eliminate her before that happens." It was massive, nearly 30 feet long, covered in armor plates and long spines that dripped with venom. Its mouth was filled with teeth the size of swords. "The thornback is dangerous but predictable," Vitha continued. "She will follow the river valleys to reach the spawning ground. We will land ahead of her path and set up an ambush. 3 instructors will accompany you. This is a standard elimination exercise." The air was thick with moisture and smelled of rotting vegetation. Vitha led the group through the canyons. Kethros and 2 other Silene trackers moved ahead, using their sensitive noses to search for the thornback's scent. The Vorthak warriors walked in the middle, ready to charge at a moment's notice. Marcus walked at the back, carrying extra equipment as always. They traveled for 6 hours before finding the first sign of their prey, a massive claw mark on a rock wall still fresh. "She passed here recently," Kethros reported, "perhaps 2 hours ago." One of the Silene trackers vanished into the shadows so quickly that nobody saw what took her. Then another scream from the right, then another from behind. Marcus spun around, his plasma blade in his hand. The bioluminescent moss seemed to shift and move around them. No, not the moss. Something was moving through the moss, using its light to hide. "Nightmoss stalkers," one of the instructors shouted. "Defensive positions now." The creatures attacked from all directions at once. They were like living shadows, their bodies covered in dark fur that absorbed light. Their eyes glowed with a cold blue fire. Their claws could cut through combat armor like paper. The Vorthak warrior named Grath was the first of the main group to fall. He managed to kill 1 stalker before 3 more took him down. 2 more Silene trackers were dragged into the darkness before anyone could help them. One of the instructors took a claw to the throat and died in seconds. Marcus fought alongside the others, but his plasma blade was slow compared to the stalker's speed. He took a slash across his chest that sent him stumbling backward. Blood soaked through his uniform, hot and wet. Vitha was fighting 3 stalkers at once. Her claws moved in deadly arcs and she killed 2 of them, but the third got past her guard and tore a deep wound in her side. Violet blood sprayed across the glowing moss. "Fall back," she roared, clutching her wounded side. "Everyone fall back to the extraction point." There were only 6 of them left now. Vitha, her remaining lieutenant, Kethros, 2 Morthian scouts, and Marcus. The stalkers followed them, picking at the edges of the group, testing their defenses. Marcus looked ahead and saw the canyon narrowing. If they continued, they would be trapped in a tight space where the stalkers could attack from above. But if someone held the narrow point, the others could escape to the wider canyons beyond. He made his decision. "Keep moving," Marcus said to Kethros. "Do not stop for anything." "That is the wrong direction." But his eyes were not the eyes of a dying man. They were the eyes of something else entirely, something old and patient and absolutely certain. "Maybe," he said, "but not quickly and not quietly." It was not a friendly smile. It was not a brave smile. It was the smile of a predator who had finally stopped pretending to be prey. "Come on then," he said quietly. "Let me show you what humans are really made of." The human was going to die anyway. There was nothing she could do, but she did not move. She could not look away from the small figure standing alone in the canyon, facing monsters that had killed elite warriors like they were nothing. "Commander," her lieutenant said urgently, "we need to go, now." What happened next would stay with her for the rest of her long life. The first stalker was fast. Marcus was faster, not physically faster. No human could match the speed of a Nightmare stalker, but Marcus had been watching them fight for the past hour. He had seen how they moved, how they attacked, how they pulled back after each strike. They were ambush predators. They were not used to prey that fought back. He stepped to the side at the last moment and drove his plasma blade into the creature's neck. It screamed and fell, its dark blood mixing with the glowing moss on the ground. The other 8 stalkers paused. They had expected an easy kill. They had not expected their prey to draw first blood. Marcus did not wait for them to recover. He charged. The stalkers scattered in confusion. This was not how prey behaved. Prey ran away. Prey showed fear. Prey did not attack. Marcus caught the second stalker before it could disappear into the shadows. His blade cut deep into its side, and he kicked the wounded creature into a third stalker, sending them both tumbling. The remaining stalkers regrouped. They were learning now, becoming more careful. They began to circle him, looking for an opening. Marcus stood in the center of the canyon, breathing hard. Blood ran down his chest and dripped from his fingers. His muscles were screaming for rest. His vision was starting to blur at the edges. None of that mattered. "Come on," he said. "I am still standing." He deflected one slash, dodged another, and took the third across his back. The pain was incredible. He could feel his skin tearing, feel his blood pouring out. He did not fall. He turned and drove his elbow into the nearest stalker's face. Bones cracked. The creature stumbled back, shocked. Humans were supposed to be weak. Humans were supposed to break easily. This human was broken, and he was still fighting. Marcus grabbed the wounded stalker and threw it into another one. Then he brought his blade down on a third. Then he picked up a rock and used it to crush the skull of a fourth. Minutes passed. They felt like hours. His plasma blade shorted out after killing the fifth stalker. The power cell was drained. He threw the useless weapon away and looked at the 4 remaining creatures. They were hesitating. He could see it in their glowing blue eyes. They were afraid. Nightmare stalkers were apex predators. They had never known fear. They had never had to. Nothing on this planet was more dangerous than them, until now. Marcus picked up another rock. It was a poor weapon, rough and heavy, but it would serve. He had trained with his grandfather on Earth, learning the old ways. Before humans had technology, they had killed with rocks and sharpened sticks. They had killed creatures much larger and more dangerous than themselves. They had done it by refusing to stop. "I am still here," Marcus said, his voice rough with pain. "Are you going to finish this, or are you going to run?" They were not hunting anymore. They were trying to find a way to escape. Marcus stood up slowly. His leg was ruined. His back was torn. He had lost so much blood that his skin was gray and his hands were cold. By any medical standard, he should have been dead already. He smiled at the stalkers. "I have chased animals across continents," he said, taking a step toward them. They moved back. "I have hunted in deserts and jungles and frozen wastelands. I have tracked prey for days without food or water." Some communication passed between them, some ancient instinct that told them what their conscious minds could not accept. This creature was not prey. They ran. For the first time in their evolutionary history, Nightmare stalkers fled from something that walked on 2 legs and had no claws, no fangs, no armor. Marcus watched them go. Then his legs gave out and he fell to his knees. The glowing moss lit his broken body in shades of blue and green. 5 dead stalkers lay around him. The canyon floor was covered in blood, most of it his own. He heard voices in the distance. Vitha's voice shouting orders, running footsteps getting closer. Marcus smiled. 17 minutes. He had held them for 17 minutes. Then the darkness took him. When Vitha reached him, she thought he was dead. No one could survive that much damage. No one could lose that much blood and keep breathing. But when she pressed her clawed hand against his neck, she felt a pulse. Weak, irregular, but there. "He lives," she whispered. Then louder, "He lives, get the medical team." "Now, where are the other 2 stalkers?" He looked small and fragile and completely harmless. She had spent 200 years training warriors. She had seen the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. She had killed things that could destroy cities. She had never been afraid of a human before. She was afraid now, not afraid of Marcus, afraid of what he represented. Afraid of what his species might become if they could produce warriors like this. "Get him to the shuttle," she ordered. "Keep him alive, whatever it takes." Pushed beyond every limit that nature had placed on his species, and he had not stopped. She understood now why she had felt unease during the training. She understood what made humans different from every other species she had encountered. They were not predators because of their bodies. They were predators because they could choose to ignore what their bodies told them. They could decide that pain did not matter, that fear did not matter, that death itself was just an obstacle to overcome. Vitha had ridiculed Marcus Cole because he was weak. She had been completely wrong. He was the most dangerous thing she had ever trained. Marcus Cole woke up 3 days later in a white room that smelled of medicine and chemicals. His body felt strange, both familiar and different at the same time. He tried to move his fingers and they responded, but the sensation was not quite right. He looked down at his hands. The skin was new, too perfect. No scars, no calluses, no marks from a lifetime of hard work. "Cloned tissue," said a voice from the doorway. "We had to replace most of your epidermis." Commander Vitha stood there, her 4 eyes watching him with an expression he could not read. She looked smaller somehow, or maybe he just saw her differently now. "Your muscles have been reinforced with synthetic fibers," she continued, walking to his bedside. "Your damaged organs have been replaced with cloned versions. Your spine required cybernetic support structures." She paused. "You are more machine than flesh now, in some ways." She stood beside his bed, her clawed hands folded in front of her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence stretched between them like a living thing. "I was wrong," Vitha finally said. The words seemed to cost her something. "I have trained warriors for 200 years. I thought I understood what makes a hunter, what makes a predator." It was a metal disc about the size of a human palm, covered in intricate markings. Marcus recognized it from his studies. It was a Keith Ronnie personal crest, a symbol of family and honor that was passed from master to student only in the most special circumstances. Vitha placed it on his chest. "This crest has been in my family for 12 generations," she said. "I have never given it to an outsider. I have never even considered it. They require someone who has seen what you can do." They moved. "They have passed the information to their pack. We have intercepted their communication signals. They have a new classification for humans now, a warning category. They teach their young to avoid anything that smells like you." "What are you?" Vitha asked. It was the same question she had asked on his first day, but it meant something completely different now. "I have studied humans. I know your physical limitations. I know you are soft, slow, weak by galactic standards, but what I saw in that canyon," she shook her head, "that was not weakness." He thought about his grandfather, about the stories of ancient hunters, about the long history of his species clawing its way to the top of a hostile planet. "We evolved on a world that did not want us to survive," he said slowly. "Everything was bigger, faster, stronger. We had no claws, no fangs, no armor. We should have died out millions of years ago." "We did not." Marcus sat up, ignoring the pain. "We learned to use tools because our bodies were not enough. We learned to work together because one human alone is helpless. We learned to keep going because stopping meant death." Every creature they had ever hunted had a breaking point. They pushed until the prey gave up, and then they killed it. That is how ambush predators work. "And when we do break, we put ourselves back together and keep moving." He touched the new skin on his arm, the skin that had been grown in a laboratory to replace what the stalkers had torn away. "You see a weak body. You see soft skin and blunt teeth. You think that is what we are. We are not our bodies. We are our will. We are the choice to keep going when everything tells us to stop. We are the decision to stand when running is easier." He smiled, the same smile he had shown the stalkers in the canyon. "That is what makes us predators, not claws or fangs or venom, just the absolute refusal to quit." "The galaxy does not know what you are," she said. "They see humans as I saw you on that first day, soft creatures from a small planet, newcomers who do not belong among the stars. They know that a single human held a canyon against apex predators and made them flee. Some of them are afraid. Some of them are trying to understand." And Marcus. Somewhere out there, a galactic council was discussing what to do about a species that could not be broken. His grandfather had been right. Humans were not the fastest or the strongest. They could not fly or breathe underwater or see in the dark. But they had something better. They had the will to keep going when everything told them to stop. And the galaxy was just beginning to understand what that meant. Marcus picked up the crest that Vitha had given him and held it up to the light. It was heavy in his hand, ancient and important. A symbol of respect earned through blood and pain. He smiled. This was just the beginning.